Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to last session of DuPont Summit 2024, the panel discussion, and delivered by Guadalupe, professor from George Mason University, and William Jaworski. He is professor emeritus from University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Let's welcome them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kinjo. Thank you very much for those who are here. My name is Guadalupe Correa Cabrera. I'm a professor at the Schar School of Policy and Government at George Mason University. This is a panel discussion on a paper that was, a research that started in 2016 and an article that was published in the Atlantic Journal of Communication that was in the year 2022. This article, as I mentioned, was the work that was performed since the year 2016. And this is an effort done by 5 people. One of the authors of this piece is located in North Dakota, in Fargo, North Dakota. And she was analyzing and doing reporting during the Standing Rock protests in that region of the United States. Myself, I have been doing field research in different parts of Mexico, particularly at the U.S.-Mexico borderlands on the Mexican side, and also along the migrant routes for a number of years, starting in the year 2014, when the so-called unaccompanied minor crisis took place. This research, this paper, this research overall, this research project is titled Messengers of Justice, Social Network Analysis of Public Relations Support for Migrants. Let me share with you all a presentation that was prepared for this specific exercise. Let me share this with all of you. I hope that you can see it. Let me see. Yes, okay. So let me start here. Okay. Can you see it as well? Okay.
Yes.
Let me see. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. So the objectives and what happens in this paper, this article, this work applies social network analysis to illuminate the task forces created by US-based activists undertaking public relations on behalf of migrant caravan participants that travel from Honduras through Mexico towards the United States. In October 2018, the world and the international media covered mass migrations that started in Honduras and reached the border city of Tijuana, where I'm living right now. I'm living right now doing work during the first period of Donald Trump as president, and those migrant caravans started to multiply after that event, and they represented a different way that migrants use to apply for asylum and to travel allegedly more safely through the migration routes of Mexico. We identified those relationships of the activists, the ones that organize these caravans. So these activists, these networks of supporters of the mass migrations, particularly these networks, or this network was related to other networks of activists based in the United States that were supporting different social movements. We see these as movements. The migrant caravans are analyzed in this case as social movements. This article identifies 4 functional roles of these networks: influencers, messengers, support groups, and founding members. Those roles are identified and described in detail in this research. When talking about the characteristics of the individuals involved, these roles facilitate bridge actions, which are the mobilization of support across distinct political structures, such as Native American tribal governments, international human rights venues, and U.S. political parties. We see within this network groups of, that represent the movement that support Native American groups, particularly those that participated and stand in the mobilizations against the construction of the pipeline in North Dakota, the Dakota Access Pipeline. So how the participants of these movements were connected to organizers of migrant caravans, and those were also connected to political parties and human rights venues. The result that we observe is a flexible public relations venture that has ability to influence diverse audiences and extend beyond this particular mobilization effort. This has been most useful in the current American debate concerning restrictive U.S. immigration policies and border security measures. This is a very important paper, particularly today, just at the start, at the beginning of a new administration of Donald J. Trump. And these U.S. immigration policies, restrictive U.S. immigration policies and border security measures are going to form probably or going to maybe these support networks for migrants. So we kind of try to understand how this movement was formed and how this movement is not necessarily completely organic, but was very well organized, and we try to classify the participants in these mobilization structures or in these bridge actions. We try to identify these bridge actions that connected support groups are across distinct political structures. This is something that took us a number of years and a number of some efforts to analyze those participants and their interactions in social media, particularly Facebook, but also in Instagram, Twitter, and WhatsApp groups that were formed to organize people. Some of those groups we were able to participate in, particularly those that organize migrant caravans. These are the visuals of a very large social movement that included people from United States, mainly Mexico and Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. But the mobilization of migrants, this mass movement started in the beginning from Honduras. And just really before the midterm election of the year 2018. This movement started in October 2018. And some of these actors also had participated in 2016, 2017 in the Standing Rock protests that connected a number of indigenous Native American groups throughout the United States that participate in this movement. It's a very important movement that started just before the arrival to Donald Trump to the presidency of the United States of America. It was an impressive, incredible, big social movement, and we analyzed key people, we classified the actors, we analyzed their actions and the connection of them. Some of these organizers participate. Many of them started and moved to different movements, such as, for example, the support groups after Hurricane Maria in 2017 in the city of Houston, in Puerto Rico. Sorry. This all and I'm going to provide just a very brief introduction here of the whole paper and what is this paper about. The way that we understood the movement and the participants and how we classified also came from the presentation that some members of the so-called Border Support Network or Asylum Seeker Caravan Support Network, simply Caravan Support Network, how these hashtag and how they communicated, the participants communicated to provide support for the migrants and to connect with movements to stop the movement to build the border wall. It was ideological and political at the same time, and connected different actions. But in Antioch College, I mean, we in this college, the some of the participants of the Border Support Network, in order to recruit members for their activities, explained us how their actions work and how their actions work connected them to the Standing Rock protest movements through the eagle and condor message, which has to do with this idea that the eagle that represents Native American movements could be connected to the movements of migrants that is represented by the condor. That idea, that ideology, that's religious, that cultural, uh, that connects one movement with this other movement. They showed us how they focus on education, resistance, and migrant support, and they they wanted the recruitment, they wanted at the same time. And I'm going to try to be not that, I mean, we try to reproduce this and how they in the chalkboard they explain us what they did, what I mean, they needed money as well to continue these these activities, education, resistance, and migrant support, and how they were going to form a village of resistance that connected the language that was used in the Standing Rock protests with the support for migrants and the support to stop the building of the border wall. That was a key element in the propaganda by the US government in those years. That this talk in Antioch College took place on December 22nd, 2018. It's very important to consider that the activists that were organizing these movements were mostly based in the United States, and they, communicate through this hashtag border support network that was also connected to other networks that were resisting, right wing political movements such as Occupy ICE or movements against Occupy Wall Street, and movements that were progressive in nature that connected with also the protection of the environment. So that those ideas that are progressive in nature connected to each other, but in a very well organized manner. What we did, we identified key members of the border support network that were communicated among themselves, started in Standing Rock, and then they appeared in Tijuana and they started mobilizing support, not just the mobilization of the migrants themselves, but providing support in shelters when the migrants arrived to a number of cities, particularly to the city of Tijuana in Baja California. And these actors that were extremely present, this was done by continuous I would say curating the information of these communications through this hashtag, continuous not surveillance, continuous oversight. Continuous looking at what was going on. In the communication in the social media, continuous participation in the social media, and analysis of these messages that were open to everyone. And it was very interesting that from one space of support from group connected to the different spaces of support. But with this idea of the eagle and condor, they kind of connected themselves. And Professor William Jaworski is going to explain much better these so-called bridge actions, how activists are supposedly completely different, but connect some political actors as well and social actors. So we identify these 21 actors and we classify them in 4 categories: founding members, support groups, messaging, and influencers. I can explain this better. We present a matrix of how we did that, how we the number of times that they color, particularly through the platforms, through the Facebook platforms, through the hashtag border support network. And I can explain later what what these Rajendra Kulkarni, who's here, who developed the social network analysis and analyzed this analysis, is going to explain a little bit better how this dense network, the average density is 70, almost 75%, which means that the relationship between these activists that participated both in the Standing Rock protest and the mobilization and support of migrant caravans, and are part of the border support network, were pretty well linked. It's important that after William Jaworski explains the bridge actions that I explained, these categories, because it's very interesting how they work, how they support, how they have an ideology, how they have the ideas of social rights and political civil rights, and how from their human rights and how from them they expand the message through through messengers and influencers, and how these connects a number of progressive messages, but very well organized and maybe also very well funded. This is a social movement. Migrant caravans is understood as a social movement as well as Standing Rock. And successful social movements require different elements. There is funding, there is organization, leadership, and of course the bridge actions, the communication among them, the capacity that they could have for expanding their message and achieving support from the civil society overall. And we were able to identify these actors, for a number of years, and we produced these paper that show us how well organized and how these actors work beyond their simple objectives as a group, and how the eagle and condor, how Native American groups of activists are also supporting groups that are supporting immigrant rights. This is probably going to take a different shape, but similar type of organization. Start again, different policies, restrictive immigration policies, and start massive deportations. Let's remember that in the year 2017, as soon as Donald Trump arrived to power after promising to build a big and beautiful wall, he basically send the military to place razor wire, concertina wire along the fence, the border fence, and that generated visually an intention to close the border symbolically, and the objective of building a wall was never materialized, but also generated a reaction on the other side. In this moment, I am pretty confident that some of these groups that already had organized will reactivate again in a different, probably in a different way, will happen with the massive deportations. Donald Trump has promised to deport massively a number of undocumented immigrants, and he has promised to send the military to perform those tasks. So that will definitely, well, will probably very possibly activate the activists, the messengers, the influencers that participated before, and the ideologues of those movements might change a little bit their ways, the one that we call founding members will probably change a little bit their discourse. But I'm pretty sure that some of these actors are going to appear again in movements of resistance to some of the policies that will be implemented from Washington, D.C. Thank you for this. This was just an introduction of this work and the objectives of the work. Thank you. And I think that my colleague, William Jaworski, is going to talk about the bridge actions which are central to the explanation of this work that will probably replicate itself in different moments and different movements in the United States.
Okay, thank you, Guadalupe. I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear.
Very good.
The notion of bridge actions might sound a little hazy, so I'll just lay it out a little bit. The anthropologist F.G. Bailey introduced the concept of bridge actions in his 1960 book, Tribe, Caste, and Nation. There, he defined bridge actions as the manner in which individuals pursued their interests by mobilizing support across competing political structures. He discussed the phenomena in an earlier publication, Caste and the Economic Frontier, and that book provides a nice illustration of what he went on to call bridge action. In the case of the village in India that he studied, encroaching mercantile economy, a new political economic structure, provided a low-caste group of distillers some economic opportunities previously unavailable. By utilizing these new financial resources, the distiller caste attempted to improve their status within the traditional caste system, which was an older political structure. If the momentum is strong enough, the bridge action may actually lead to durable social and cultural change within the targeted political arena. In other words, the older structure in Bailey's case, the caste system. So this type of activity, bridge actions, we find them, it might be familiar to those of you who have studied either legal pluralism or social and cultural anthropology. Individuals, they maneuver within both normative rules, which we would say traditional accepted cultural norms, front stage behavior, and they also maneuver within pragmatic rules, what Goffman might call backstage behavior, deviation, dirty tactics, breaking of traditional cultural norms. And they'll be guided by self-interest as they seek a strategically sound way forward. Bridge actions facilitate this goal-oriented behavior and at times affect social change as individuals choose which political arenas to link and manipulate and which messages to use. So in our study, we noted that an activist network in contemporary America was well served when it had its tentacles extended into various political structures. As our analysis shows, the Migrant Support Network, which was dedicated to the cause of helping migrant caravan participants, was constructed in a manner that gave it credibility within a number of distinct structures. These structures include, but are not limited to, 1, the Democratic Party, 2, Native American tribal governments and organizations, 3, the human rights community, and 4, the court of public opinion. The network was able to draw on individuals, especially messengers and social media influencers, who had distinct identities that appealed to members of these differing political arenas. Thus, they engaged in bridge actions as they mobilized support across these venues. The fine-tuned messaging they could extend to select target audience members gets people to buy into the agenda. This is certainly easier than trying to change the behavior of individuals who resist your messaging. Bailey noticed a commonality between ritual and political disputes. That is to say, in both ritual and dispute, participants try to state publicly the appropriate relationships within a given political system. In our study, we noticed examples in which ritual was put to use, like drummers marching in a disciplined manner, methodically playing their music as they accompanied activists who in turn were vocalizing First Nations ideology, such as the prophecy of the eagle and condor, while they approached the migrants. The activists, through their use of ritual, try and shape the correct norms and hope that they can generate a collective effervescence, a sense of in-group solidarity, an electric emotion among participants and onlookers. Our social network analysis found individuals with links to the Democratic Party, these Native American tribal organizations, the press, and the entertainment industry. Social media influencers with Hollywood backgrounds had tremendous influence with both the court of public opinion due to their celebrity status and with the Democratic Party due to their personal relationship. Messengers, influencers, and founding members connected to the Native American tribal organizations. Members of the support groups had strong ties to the human rights community. Thus, the organization as a whole was readily capable of performing bridge actions within these different political arenas. The network had key communicators with high levels of credibility within each venue. Some bridge actions lead to social change, others do not. One goal of the activist network that they tried but failed to achieve was altering the political decision-making in the US so that First Nations people decide borders, an objective. While it is perhaps too early to render a final verdict on activism at the US-Mexico border or at Standing Rock, where our colleague was studying in North Dakota, thus far, we do not see any large-scale cultural, social, or legal changes in the direction hoped for by activists. If anything, in 2024, the US public is more inclined towards tighter border security than it was during the 2018 to 2020 timeframe. The actual structural change that may occur might even be one that rolls back the current asylum laws, a legal change we presume the activists do not wish to see implemented. So that's just a short summary of some of the dynamics associated with trying to maneuver within distinct political structures. And I don't know if Raj is here, if he wants to talk further on the social network analysis, or do you want to take over from here, Guadalupe?
Yes, yes, I am going to pick up and then Raj is going to explain the social networks. I'm just going to say again that we identified, a number of actors in the two movements, but we choose 21 people, and we found 4 categories and we established them to illustrate the generic function of each actor. This helped us to understand better how the network operate, which goes beyond the resistant actions at the border, and was apparently related to other social movements as Standing Rock or the Women's March in the United States. These 21 actors were divided into to explain a little bit more about the way that technically we constructed the matrix and how we did the social network analysis and what the numbers mean and why is the network so dense of 75% of the possible connection between the actors. The main organizers or founding members, this is the first category. These are the ones who define the ideology of the movement and determine its communication and resistance strategies. They kind of like ideologues, and they are the ones that mobilize from the grassroots with the ideology. The second group are those that support, that provide support or assistance to vulnerable groups and secure funds and donations to coordinate and carry out altruistic activities. These are the support groups. We call them support groups. This is the second group that we have. The third one are those who provide are the messengers, that the ones that represent all groups in the network and design the general communication strategy and organize from above the protests themselves. They are the ones that talk, and they are the ones that advertise the actions that are carrying this megaphone that express their ideas and the mobilization itself, mobilize the migrants, and also communicate those actions to the public through the media, through a number of forms such as documentaries, visual devices, and all of that. And the fourth group are the group that we call influencers, the influential communicators. Many of them are connected to Hollywood, to the world of the spectacle. And this is a group of actors or personalities in media outlets or the entertainment world that ultimately give legitimacy and provide. These actors participate in more than one movement. Francis Fisher, Leonardo DiCaprio, for example, and some of the Jay Ponte, the Siri Kane, and some of these influencers that have a big number of followers or are capable of beyond the messaging, they are able to influence and to make these reach very, very big audiences and transform the narratives around these social movements and have a political and social impact at the same time. In the end, a number of these actors are connected to political movements, and as it was mentioned, particularly to the Democratic Party during the Trump years. In this case, Standing Rock movement started in 2016 when Donald Trump was campaigning to arrive to the presidency, and he achieved that goal in the year 2017. So do you want me, Raj, to present and share the networks? Let me go there. Okay. Okay. Here they are. Now let me go to the first one. Can you see that?
Yep, I can see that.
Okay. Perfect.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, just want to add to what Guadalupe and Professor William Jaworski said, is that this entire movement is not a self-organized entity. It is actually very well organized by a number of actors who are actively engaged in doing this. So from outside, it might look like it was a grassroots movement that came out of nowhere. That is really doesn't seem to be the case. There are some number of actors who are very actively engaged to organize this entire movement, and how they bring together different players and different actors and their influence in different directions. So basically, I guess they're trying to make it as appealing to many people as possible. And when that happens, there is also a possibility that their main message might get diluted and get diverted. And that may be one of the reasons the movement finally couldn't achieve its final goal. The other thing is, of course, I think Guadalupe might have touched it already, is that the nature of the illegal immigration, I guess I'll call them rather migration from other countries into the US, change is that instead of individuals migrating by themselves, this became a sort of looked like a mass movement where very large number of caravans were being organized. And this was all done again in a very well thoughtful manner by these organizing certain key actors within these organizations. So it was not a natural phenomena that grew out of something. It was very well organized. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, coming back to these two graphics, other graphs. These are, first one you are looking at right now shows the total number of actors are 21, which were identified by Guadalupe, and they are connected simply by 121 edges. So these are just one-to-one connection if there is a communication between the two, but it doesn't say how many times they communicated with each other. So just the number of times they communicated, right? So that is why the average density, it is a very high average density. And why does average density matter? Is because if any message originates in one place, it can be quickly transferred to all other actors within the network because it's such a high density network. So there are very few bottlenecks, in fact, in this network. Everybody can communicate almost with everybody else. Of course, still there are some important actors within this organization. And so those are identified in the next slide.
Yeah, let me go and, okay. Can I, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, here it is.
Yeah, I mean, it looks almost similar, but there is a distinctive difference between the previous figure and this figure. Here, actually, the number of connection between two actors is how many times they communicated with each other. And of course, there is a directionality involved here. So it's a two-way communication, and two separate arrows actually should point out if there's a two-way communication. Otherwise, it's a one-way communication. And that's the reason that even though average density here is still very high, actually there are certain actors that are more distinctly connected to each other compared to the other actors. But overall, the network has a very smooth functioning possible because the average density is so high. Anything else that you need to know is just that we have, as Guadalupe said, there are different types of actors, and they are shown here in this particular diagram. Any other thing you want me to add, or if anybody has any question, probably.
There are three questions that are very interesting. Let me just try to wrap it up this presentation. As you all know, I mean, this study is it's part of a very big effort, and we have we have a very, very large network. This is just an example of 21 very important actors, the key actors that represent these two movements and other movements and beyond, right? This social networks analysis shows important dynamics of communication and bridge action that could be replicated in other instances and for the study of other movements. However, validity of the results depends really on the strength and consistency of the field research and the quality of social intelligence work conducted in social media platforms. There was a lot of work done in this case. There was a lot of verification and patience in analyzing these communications, the language, the interactions that allowed us to choose these 21 actors that are connected with many others that are also very influential. The present study allows us to think deeply about the actors who participated in social mobilizations, particularly regarding communications on behalf of migrant caravans and their main organizational strategies. We have noted that there's suitability for flexible public relations that can reach out to and access multiple audiences. The professional activism, where activists move from movement to movement, is kind of like to some extent showed in this analysis. Notwithstanding the fact that this movement is distinct in essence, it has been backed by some other similar actors that have supported or have had direct presence in other more recent episodes of social mobilizers reorganizing themselves to resist what is going to happen in the United States. Nonetheless, the social network analysis presented here provides only a preliminary glimpse of the composition of a network of activists that uses the idea of resistance with the aim of advancing a progressive agenda. And they, receive more funding, more attention. The mobilization strategies are better implemented during times um, of a political, special political times, such as the one that we're about to live in the United States and all over the world, due to the a presidency that has a specific agenda, specific motivations, political motivations. The America First, Make America Great Again movement is going to face a lot of resistance from the other side of the political ideological spectrum. So this paper is extremely relevant in that sense. We are receiving 3 questions that I consider very interesting. And we can start by responding. Please feel free, Raj or Vil, to respond to any of those if you would like to. The first, second, and third questions are by John Murphy. Thank you for those excellent questions. Some of them are difficult to respond just from the work that we have done, but they are excellent and they need to be given enough time. The first one is, what role, if any, do different communication platforms, traditional and social media, grassroots can play in shaping network dynamics? Bill, would you like to say something about that?
Oh my goodness.
You're the expert on communications. I'm probably, yeah.
No,
Uh-huh.
I really don't have any insight into the different platforms right now. Now that I think of it, I don't have any data at my fingertips of, who was using what and who was communicating in which way. So I'll leave that up to Raj to expand on if he can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I can also respond somewhat at that question. Yes, Raj.
Sorry. I can only add something that you guys are talking about, is that most likely most of the social network applications that are currently there, especially Facebook, is widely used to spread the word or misword or whatever way your political orientation is. And of course, Twitter is also involved. Nowadays, Blue Sky might be another one candidate for that. And Guadalupe already mentioned WhatsApp. Any other social network application that is available, I guess they will, if somebody is willing to, they can spread their word. Of course, whether it spreads everywhere or not is another question, but that is some of the platforms I would think they are involved in this. That is all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I have a little bit more things to say about this, and I think this is an excellent question. We didn't work on that specific response to the question in the paper, but it's very important in social mobilization. Of course, movements and the different categories that we identified of the different actors and their performance in this network. The different communication platforms, more and more and more. I mean, the social media is playing a greater role in shaping network dynamics, more and more. I mean, even the the ideologues or the founding members and the support groups that are usually using traditional communication platforms. Of course, they use more communication platforms, the traditional ones, and the messaging is not performed necessarily through social media, but now WhatsApp has occupied, the traditional way to communicate is through WhatsApp. In order to send some mess, oh, or you're going to bring me the money, you're bringing me, the food and the clothes to the shelter. Let's build the shelter. Everything is through WhatsApp. So like really the social media is transforming the way people communicate, or has already transformed. Grassroots campaigns are still part of all these, but they also perform through social media, through Instagram and Facebook in particular. And of course, the influencers and the messengers just now use all these platforms, right? There is kind of like supposedly that the X platform was going to be changed by Blue Sky, or what academics want to do, but still, X is X. Twitter, I mean, previously Twitter is Twitter for communicating among the activists to do the support of the migrants or of the movements per se, but as a way to communicate the messages or the actions to the public to achieve support from the civil society. The grassroots campaigns also use social media, and this campaign at the grassroots campaign that we're talking about, we kind of try to much better how this works. There's an idea, there are these messages that need to be sent, and they need to support the poor, the migrants, environmentalists. The messages about environmentalism are connected with climate, refugees, climate change, the movement, the need of the movement. The same thing with the Dakota Access Pipeline, the No DAPL. So progressive movements, progressive goals are within these, and grassroots campaigns are built in that regard, right? The messages, but they are all, communicated through social media in different forms. That is another paper that needs to be written. Absolutely, kind of like, explaining how the different communication platforms shape the network dynamics. It needs to be part by part, but we didn't do that. It's a very interesting question. The next question, also by John Murphy, is how do these networks amplify or mitigate misinformation about migrants? And I think that both Bill and Raj would have something to say because of the work you both do with regards to misinformation, particularly Raj, and also Bill, who's the expert on propaganda and misinformation. So I'll leave this to you both.
Sure, I can say a little here. I would assume that they're amplifying it. These messages, of course, get amplified via bots, fake accounts, and puppet accounts, whatever you want to call them, which are proliferating throughout the web. So what is it? The number of X communications that are sent out by bots is fairly high now, what research indicates. So it's being amplified by that. And because we live in echo chambers now, there's really not much in the way of critically contesting messages. I mean, I talk to friends in different political groups. I have a conservative chat group of friends, and I have a very liberal chat group of friends. And both of these groups, it's like they live in different worlds, one in the Arctic and one in the Amazon, perhaps. It's like they live in different cultures. and neither group is actually hearing, reasonable criticism that emanates from their political opponents. So I think that misinformation and AI, as you mentioned it, maybe some of you saw, I know you're not a fan of Harari, Guadalupe, but I believe he's got that new book out on the future of AI. AI, it's just, look how the world chess champion Kasparov was defeated by a chess computer, I believe in 1997. And now the world chess champion Ding Liren, he would stand no chance against the leading computers. We don't even, chess computers, we don't even understand how they're making the moves. So if AI continues to advance in the ways we've seen it advancing, it may be that we don't even pick up on the logical mistakes that they're feeding into the feed. If the goal is to persuade us, not to lead us to truth, but if the goal of AI programs is, they say, win this argument, they'll eventually be constructing arguments that are so complex that it'll be difficult for us to see the faults within them. They'll be so persuasive, we may be like, oh my, this figured it out, just like it, figured out that math problem for me. So I do have a concern that the commingling between AI, echo chambers, and current social media is just sort of a recipe for, I like the phrase used by the empiricist philosopher Bast van Fresen, who calls the unobservable sector of reality, an enchanted forest. And look how much propaganda these days makes use of unobservables. Did the virus start in a Wuhan lab or in a wet market or elsewhere? We can't observe where it started. Who killed so-and-so? There are so many things that we can't observe that propagandists, they take advantage of these unobservable arenas in reality, and AI and echo chambers build on them. That is there hope for truth? I just saw that question popping up on the screen. I mean, I don't know, but I'm kind of pessimistic right now at the way things are going. I remember when I first became a professional propagandist in a former career, I thought that, I was in a psychological operations battalion for the US Army, creating propaganda, deploying it in Latin America. And I thought, well, maybe it could help us, win the Cold War and defeat groups like the Shining Path. But I just see propaganda in my mind becoming so much more powerful and so much more beloved by the population than is careful scientific analysis or the desire for criticism, to hear criticism, to hear criticism of our own ideas and to submit our own ideas to critical scrutiny. That I'm kind of concerned, but anyway, I'll let Raj and Guadalupe chime in. I'm hogging the conversation. Go ahead.
No, you're not. It's interesting because we have another question and another question of follow-up, two more questions of follow-up as this question. We know it's like, yeah, I mean, is this going amplifying misinformation or how to deal with that? And this question that has to do with this one, how might more credible sources create? Okay, let me see. How might more credible sources create longer lead messages once validated? And if so, how much longer does that take? And do the majority, given misinformation, ever get to receive the corrected information? Wow, that's a very complex question.
It's very complex because another thing that I see going on
really can be asked if we had done more machine learning to I was able to look at the messages and the misinformation. I was following this for a year and a couple of months. The messages that, and the person that really did the majority of the work in the beginning and that connected the two movements was Cindy Gomez-Champ. And she spent hours and hours and hours throughout this period to do this. How might more credible sources create longer lived messages once validated? I am not sure. I mean, on the contrary, we are having more information and more sources, more misinformation. And because of all what the information that we receive, and most of it, I mean, many of it, it's misinformation. It's difficult to kind of like and how to get this corrected information. I had a conversation today with Raj about maybe we can use AI to kind of verify that if we provide the correct information. But it's because it's propaganda and we have more tools to spread this out. This is going to be much more complex. In other words, is there hope for truth? I am not sure how to answer that question because we also have more platforms and devices to verify verify the correct information versus misinformation. I think we have to work out these. I think that those that want to spread out misinformation have been much better spreading this out, have been much better, well organized, and not just in the US, but everywhere else. As we all know, Russia, China, and many other countries have worked well to spread out misinformation as a part of a generation warfare strategy or whatever. But I think that the country can also be done. I think there's hope for the truth. Yes, it is, if we organize ourselves to kind of like provide the correct information and direction. But it's going to be difficult. What do you think, Raj, in this regard about misinformation?
Misinformation, there is no real solution for that, except that maybe there is something like, I mean, there is a limited amount of attention anybody can pay to any kind of information. So there is certain amount you can pay to misinformation, certain amount to correct information or whatever. So there's so-called attention economy that will come into picture, where finally there are echo chambers there definitely, so you cannot really cross those echo chambers. And within the echo chambers there, everybody has certain amount of attention they can pay to different messages. So maybe that will limit the amount of spread of misinformation by itself. Because I cannot devote reading nonsense for entire day. I just don't have time to do that, and I will just ignore it. So that is one hope that I'm thinking, that people will just stop paying attention to this deluge of messages, most of which are misinformation. Regarding that, one thing that I think regarding the echo chamber is that each of these echo chambers have their own heroes and heroines. And if somehow people are able to dismantle those heroes and heroines, people will stop paying attention to what they say. Because most of the times, if some leader in one particular echo chamber says something, people don't even have critical thinking. They will just accept it as a God-given truth, and they continue to accept anything that comes out of that person's mouth. The only way it can, I guess, stop spreading is if that person gets somehow discredited by some bigger issues. That is my way of looking at stopping or spreading of misinformation.
Thank you. There is a great comment here that is connected to these ideas. And he's asking a more general question, Daniel Gutierrez, is how I mean, a more general question is about how do we translate scientific knowledge for the general? And I think AI can help us look LM. I mean, and this is, I don't know how they did it, but they translate scientific knowledge for the general public. They did it in 5 minutes. They transform our paper into a paper that's understandable by the general public. It's fascinating the way Notebook LM, the Google platform of AI, transformed it through a lot of knowledge already for the general public, and the scientific knowledge that we provided the machine or the program or whatever it is. I mean, in the prompt, and then the information that was feeding the prompt, really transformed it in a very interesting way. And I think people are working on that already, to transform the scientific knowledge into knowledge for the general public. As educators, we try to do that. Sometimes we are not able to do that very effectively, but this is what we try all the time. And AI is helping us to do that as well. It's incredible. Just include a paper on Notebook LM, and you're going to see how it is transformed to the general public. It's amazing. Please try to do that. Propaganda connects, and this is a great comment by Daniel as well. Propaganda connects with people's emotions, and that's a part of what makes it so dangerous. I completely agree. And this is why a number of people now in the United States are asking for a war against cartels in Mexico that would be really a military intervention on Mexico's soil. And that's what they are wanting, massive deportations, not understanding that people who come to the States to work without proper documentation are really making America great. But it touches emotions, and the U.S. in decline, people without their American dream anymore are, blaming imaginary enemies that are being posed by the narratives of the political elites, leaving Trump aside, but just the political elite that are behind the Make America Great Again or America First project. What else? I hadn't heard of this. Thank you. I know it is a whole theme and constant efforts translating science for the public. Part of the issue too is that everything is so deeply complex. We tend to crave simple narratives. I agree, Daniel. Thank you for that. And I know that we have 6 minutes, so I will ask you about this last question by John Murphy as well. How the networks address intersectional issues faced by migrants, such as gender, ethnicity, legal status, etc. I don't know if you have a response to that, Vil or Raj. I do have a response to that, but please go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Guadalupe. No.
Yeah, go ahead, Guadalupe.
Okay, how the networks address intersectional issues faced by migrants? It's I don't know how to explain that, but I have seen that. Done very effectively, particularly in TikTok. For example, there are messages that are targeted to undocumented immigrants because of because of messages that connect to groups. It's something that Will can talk a little bit about, because he's an expert of how to target analysis, right, Bill? So this question, probably the response goes to you. How do networks address intersectional issues? Target analysis. You target the group and you generate, a fight with another group. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, because they've got activists within this network who are part of the women's movement, part of Native American tribes, part of Muslim rights movements, human rights movements, etc. They have people who have done a lot of background research in specific target audiences. And we are always taught, and I assume they're doing the same thing, is you're looking at both vulnerabilities in the target audience and susceptibilities. Vulnerability being a need within the target audience, and the susceptibility being the degree to which you and your team can exploit that need. So that need could be for food, for shelter, for help with travel arrangements, anything like that. So you're trying to, so because they have people with all backgrounds in all these arenas, they have tremendous experience working with these groups on the ground, and they know their needs, they know their aspirations, they know their fears, their desires, et cetera, et cetera. So it is easy, as Guadalupe said, to fine-tune messages for a specific group, as long as you have, people who have their pulse on this group. And this network does. They've got, people on the ground from Standing Rock, from migrant communities, from border communities that know the needs of different groups.
Right. Right. This is all very well organized. Just kind of like this conclusion, we can conclude that, yeah, they address it and they're targeted towards different groups like the caravan. There was the trans caravan groups that where the messages went explicitly to them with the trans flag and specific messages that connect emotionally to particular groups. So it's segmented. Messages are segmented, and ethnicity, legal status in TikTok, you can see you need. I mean, it's kind of like you like travel to the United States, legal lawyers are connected, and they have, they say that they provide legal aid to you in case you want to be in the US. There are messages to particular groups. That's the way it's done, and we could be spending hours talking about that. We have not written about that, but these questions are great. We really appreciate everyone who participated and who attended this panel. Thank you for being here. Bill, Raj, and I are very happy that you were able to attend.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. This is the last session of DuPont Summit 2024, and hopefully we will see you next year, and you all have a great weekend. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.